Thanks for being here today. Let me introduce those who have joined me at the podium. First of all, we have Jonathan Winikoff, who is the Director of Pediatric Research at the Tobacco Research and Treatment Center at Massachusetts General Hospital. We have also with us Methuen School Superintendent Judith Scannell, who's been on the front lines seeing, witnessing the impact of vaping in schools and has been an important partner with our office. We have Shariel Joseph, a Watertown High School student and member of the statewide leadership team with the 84 movement, the statewide anti-youth smoking campaign. We also are joined by Representative Paul McMurtry and Senator Jason Lewis, as well as members of the American Cancer Society and other public health organizations, and also Assistant Attorney General Dan Less. Look, we're here today for one reason. This is about keeping kids safe and healthy. You know, for the past 50 years in this country, we've worked hard to reduce smoking rates among young people and to stop young people from becoming addicted to nicotine. A generation ago, we know that the major strategy of cigarette companies was to basically work to get young people hooked. And we worked really hard. A group of state AGs and others came together many years ago to end and curtail those practices. The practices then included the use of cartoon characters, cute mascots, and television advertisements to get tens of millions of smokers addicted while they were young. This was a smart and effective marketing strategy that led to untold death, disease, and a public health disaster. At a time when lung cancer rates are declining across the country and teen smoking of traditional cigarettes is at an all-time low, we are unfortunately seeing many companies pick up the playbook of the tobacco companies and look to market to and get young people addicted. What I'm talking about today is something called vaping, sometimes known in places as JUULing. And I'll tell you what we're talking about. All of this progress that I talked about over the last few decades is under threat because of the actions and activities of these companies. E-cigarettes and vape pens, many of which look like harmless, sleek USB flash drives like the one I'm holding in my hand, are out and in use in public. If you were to ask any number of middle school students, high school students certainly, if they're familiar with these devices, they would tell you they see them everywhere. I hear about it everywhere I go. You know, over the last few months, I've been out visiting with a number of middle school students and high school students to talk about health and wellness, substance use prevention, and our program out of this office in their communities. And along the way, I want you to know that I am taking this action because I have heard from so many school nurses, teachers, principals, coaches, and parents everywhere I go across the state about the pervasiveness of this problem. I remember being at one school where the high school nurse told me that 80% of the students in that school were vaping. I was at another middle school where I heard that students as young as 4th grade were vaping. That's why this is such a problem, and that's why we need to act as a state, and that's why, frankly, I'm sounding the alarm today. You know, here's why it's a big deal. One cartridge, and as I mentioned, this is a device manufactured by JUUL, a company in California, and I'll talk more about that. It's made to look like a sleek USB flash drive, and in that goes e-juice or vaping liquid. I'll tell you, the contents of this one cartridge are the equivalent of one pack of cigarettes, containing as much nicotine as an entire pack of cigarettes. That's a big deal, not to mention the other chemical compounds, additives, and things we don't even know or understand may be in that liquid. It's highly addictive and a dangerous combination that shouldn't be anywhere near the brains or the lungs of a 10, 12, 14, or 16-year-old. Now, many of the young people that I have spoken with and heard from directly say that they and their friends don't understand that there's any danger with these devices. They don't understand, and sometimes their parents don't understand, that they're taking a health risk at all. The manufacturers of these products often claim that their goal is to provide an alternative for adult cigarette smokers. That's an important goal. But that's not why we're here, because that is not what is happening. We're here because of what we're seeing on these boards. And I want you to focus on what is here to my right. This represents the lengths to which companies are willing to go to market these products to kids. Selling nicotine cartridges in candy flavors that smell and taste like Sour Patch Kids, bubble gum, whipped cream, blue raspberry, cotton candy, and more. We know who that is marketed and directed to. They also work to design cases. You see some represented here that you can put on your phone, often referred to as a skin, a case similar to what you put on your phone, that instead will cover this drive that come in the form of cartoon characters and comic book characters like Spider-Man and Captain America and Superman. Disguising and designing devices that are meant to look like school supplies. I mentioned the USB flash drive, but also see here a vape that is in the form of a Sharpie magic marker. These are the lengths that these companies are going to. And when JUUL started marketing back in 2015, I want you to focus on what their advertisements look like. This is a collection of some of the ads that JUUL used in 2015 to launch its campaign for their e-cigarettes and vapes. And look at these pictures closely and tell me whether or not you think this is a company that was there marketing to and looking to directly appeal to young people. I think you need look no further than the very ads and the pictures and the individuals represented in those ads. So this isn't about, I want to be clear with the public, this isn't about getting adults to stop smoking cigarettes. This is about getting kids to start vaping. That's what these companies are up to, okay? They're engaged in an effort to get kids addicted, to get them hooked so that they will have customers for the rest of their lives. That's why today my office is taking significant steps to fight back. First of all, we have just sent cease and desist letters to 2 online vaping stores that have been violating Massachusetts laws. These companies are the online equivalent of a liquor store that doesn't check IDs, and as a result, we believe they are selling products to minors against the law. Second, we're announcing an investigation into the country's largest e-cigarette manufacturer, JUUL Labs, based in California, whose products are so popular with young people that smoking e-cigarettes and vapes is often referred to commonly as JUULing. This is one of the biggest companies that many adults may never have heard of, but it is responsible for 2/3 of the $2 billion e-cigarette market in the United States today. And way too much of their product is ending up in the hands of young people and ending up in schools. So we've sent cease and desist letters. We've also sent subpoenas to JUUL. We are investigating and we want answers. I want to know, are they tracking underage use of their products? What are they doing about the rampant use of their product by teenagers? And is this an intentional outcome of their own marketing sales strategy? Finally, I am concerned, having recently learned that JUUL has been offering so-called prevention curriculum to school districts in Massachusetts. This is a company that has taken a page directly out of the cigarette industry's playbook and now wants to directly contract with and engage with schools and school districts across this state. My office recently, having heard about this, sent a letter to every school district in Massachusetts warning them about the use of these materials and urging school officials to contact us to report anyone marketing vaping products to their students. All of these efforts build on our work of a few years ago to establish regulations to ensure that children, that young people, not use these products. Because at the end of the day, that is my concern. I want parents and the people of Massachusetts to know that my office is committed to turning the tide here. We're working closely with city and town leaders, as well as the legislature, the medical community, public health, and school officials. And at the same time, my office continues our unprecedented investments into substance use prevention education, including our $2 million partnership with the GE Foundation that has made prevention education available now to every public middle school in our state. The bottom line, this is about keeping young people safe and healthy. I want parents and everybody out there across the state to understand the prevalence, the pervasiveness of vaping, and also to understand the harm that comes through the use of these devices, as you're going to hear briefly from our doctors in just a moment. So if you're a parent, I encourage you to be on the lookout for this. Talk to your kids about this. If you're a teacher or principal, make sure you have the resources you need to talk to students about making healthy decisions. And to the vaping companies, including some of our brick and mortar stores that are out there in communities across the state, my message is pretty simple. Stop selling this stuff to young people. It's a matter of public health, and it's a matter of public safety, and I want it to end. So thank you for turning out today. At this time, I want to introduce Dr. Winnicott.
So on behalf of my colleague Lester Hartman and pediatricians throughout the Commonwealth, thank you, Attorney General Healey, for taking action today to prevent the sale and marketing of JUUL and other electronic vape products to adolescents. I want to thank you and your incredible staff, especially Elise Yannett and Dan Less, for putting in the time to understand the complexities of this public health epidemic. Every day in my practice at Mass General Hospital for Children, I talk with adolescents who are either using JUUL products themselves or have friends using the devices. My patients report using JUUL devices in the classroom, while walking in the hallways, because they need a hit to get through the day. This same pattern is being seen by pediatricians across Massachusetts, across the suburbs and cities, and throughout all socioeconomic classes. According to the latest data from the Center for Disease Control's Youth Risk Behavior Surveillance System, over 20% of Massachusetts high school students currently use an electronic vape product. But by senior year, 25% of Massachusetts seniors are active users. Tobacco companies know that if adolescents begin using their products before the age of 21, it's likely they'll have a lifelong customer. In fact, 95% of tobacco users started before the age of 21. This statistic is a consequence not just of deceptive marketing, aggressive sales, and promotion to kids, but to the science of the developing adolescent brain and its susceptibility to nicotine addiction. The adolescent brain is uniquely sensitive to nicotine and become addicted more rapidly and at lower exposure concentrations. The younger a teen starts smoking or vaping, the harder it will be to quit. Nicotine exposure during adolescence causes long-term structural and functional changes in the brain and primes the brain's reward centers to crave nicotine and other illicit drugs. Teens are being seduced by JUUL's fruity flavors, but become addicted to the nicotine in the device's chemical aerosol. According to a survey done by Tobacco Free Kids, over 60% of adolescents didn't even know that all JUUL flavors contain nicotine. JUUL has a new way to introduce ultrafine nicotine particles and other chemicals into a young person's lung, where it passes into the bloodstream and almost instantly crosses the blood-brain barrier directly into the pleasure centers of the brain. JUUL pods house a mixture of concentrated acid and nicotine, thereby lowering its pH and encouraging more frequent, deeper inhalations. This is just a JUUL pod, so you can see how small this is. These products can create blood nicotine levels higher than cigarettes. According to studies on tobacco addiction, some kids can become addicted to the amount of nicotine contained in just half a pod. In addition to causing asthma and eosinophilic pneumonitis, JUUL and other electronic vape products contain group 1 carcinogens such as N-nitrosonornicotine that have been proven to cause cancer. Other studies have shown that teens who vape are at least 4 times more likely to begin using traditional tobacco products. As a pediatrician, it's my responsibility to educate teens and their parents about the dangers of e-cigarettes and juuling. But it's our collective job to protect children and teens in our communities. So I offer 6 recommendations to help protect our kids. Number 1, make sure the Board of Health in your town or city strictly enforces the new Tobacco 21 law, checking compliance at least 4 times per year per retailer. A single retail store can supply an entire high school with product, potentially addicting hundreds of kids. It's never okay to push nicotine on kids to turn a profit. Report any store that sells tobacco products to teens under the age of 21 to the Attorney General's office. Number 3, encourage your Board of Health to increase fines for selling to those under 21 to $1,000 for the first offense and revocation of the license to sell tobacco products for second and additional offenses. The Massachusetts driver's license orientation changes at age 21 from horizontal to vertical, so there should never be any confusion about a customer's age. Urge your Board of Health to join with 120 Massachusetts cities and towns who have already made flavored tobacco products only legal in tobacco stores where only those 21 and over can enter. That single regulation is saving hundreds of kids from tobacco addiction in those towns. Talk to your local Board of Health and urge them to move flavors to smoke shops only. Number 5, parents, please discuss juuling with your children. Let them know that you do not approve of use or experimentation with JUUL or any vape product. And finally, for parents whose children who already vape and may be addicted to an electronic or other tobacco product, call your pediatrician. We can provide resources and specific strategies to help break your teen's nicotine addiction. Thank you.
Thank you. And now I introduce Methuen Superintendent Judith Scannell.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Attorney General, for inviting me today. I'd like to begin with how delighted I am, and I'm speaking for the educators across the Commonwealth, that the Attorney General has brought this to the forefront. Vaping, juuling has an uptick so quickly over the last 2 years. Educators are just grasping this. What is the alarming piece for all of us? We see it's really hitting our younger students. And these are the kiddos who live by social media. And as the Attorney General pointed out to all of you, these companies have figured out the marketing strategy that appeals to our students, especially our younger students, by smell, taste, pretty pictures, a nice lifestyle. And what we are so concerned about is we've worked very hard over the last 15 years to develop a healthy lifestyle curriculum throughout the public school system within our health classes and our PE classes. Curriculum has changed radically, and we saw huge improvements. Tobacco truly was left behind because of the push and the realities of a long, healthy life. And then all of a sudden, vaping appeared, and again, the appeal to our kids. The Attorney General today, in our eyes, again, is bringing this out to the public, especially to our parents. Parents are very confused right now about vaping and juuling. It's just been a quiet step forward. They're starting to make the calls. They're starting to ask questions. they don't understand this. They see what the kiddos are doing, they find some products, and again, they don't understand it because it's coming off as, all right, tobacco use, not that next step. But I strongly believe that this is a gateway for that next step into harder substance abuse for the kids. So again, as an educator, speaking for the Commonwealth, we are delighted that the Attorney General is now bringing this to the forefront for everybody to hear, and hopefully will start educating themselves about this product. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent. And now, Shariel Joseph from Watertown High School.
If you were to close your eyes and picture strawberry, watermelon, mint, vanilla, or shortcake, you wouldn't picture a vape or a JUUL. You picture actual sweets or actual desserts and fruits, something you crave when you're having a bad day, or something you always have space for after a big dinner. When you think of those sweet, delicious flavors, you generally think of lollipops or sweets and lying to your dentist about not eating that much candy. The tobacco and vaping industry uses the scents and flavors of things we consider to be comfort, and they make their products appealing by making them in over 8,000 flavors that would attract anyone with a sweet tooth. The big tobacco has 3 tactics that they use to target youth. First off, they're cheap, so it's affordable for anyone like me to get on an allowance. Second, these products are available in a lot of places where teens go often. Third, they're sweet, that any young person that finds sweets slightly appealing will enjoy. The Surgeon General's report shows that the main reason youth use e-cigarettes are because of the flavors, which proves their tactic of making the products sweet, is working. When vapes first came out, I remember seeing signs about all the flavors and how it's better for you than cigarettes. It made people like me and my friends, people who would have never smoked a regular cigarette, now want to try these products. Vapes and JUULs are so commonly used around my school and community. I'm starting to notice them as much as I see phones or chapstick, which is a ton. For example, if you needed to borrow one, there would be a handful of people that would be able to let you use one. It's actually really sad because when you need to borrow a pencil, only 1 or 2 people would be able to let you use one. There was a time period when JUULs blew up in my school, and everyone was JUULing and vaping in the bathrooms, and JUULing and vaping in classes and hallways even. From the beginning of my junior year to the end, there was a huge increase of people JUULing. Before, there were certain people that JUUL, and now it's as if everybody's JUULing. Especially since it's summer now, I'm seeing JUULs all over social media among my peers and my classmates, and it's persuading more people in my school to say, since everyone has one, why not? Versus saying it's harmful, I won't get one. My friends like the flavors because it doesn't smell like actual cigarette smoke, and they could smoke inside because it smells good. And because it doesn't taste like tobacco and tastes good and safe. I have a friend that actually just saved up to get a JUUL. At first it was him JUUling wherever he felt like it, from inside his house to biking down the street. When he went to parties, it would be everyone JUUling all together and sharing their JUUL with people that didn't have one. In my community, it is very common to sell such fruity and comfortable flavors that are really from vapes and not what I think it is from the scent. Vapes and JUULs have stole the scent of our well-known candy and desserts. To combat this vaping issue, I think it's time to hold the industry accountable. Instead of pointing fingers at young people who may use these products. I know you can get vapes and JUULs online with a click of a button without an adult. So, placing more restrictions on these products would make it less accessible and less normalized. The vaping industry needs to be held accountable for their ridiculous marketing tactics by prohibiting flavors and making their products available in adult-only establishments so that it's only accessible to adults, if that really is their intended audience. Even though I'm not really sure it is.
Well, thank you so much, Shariel, and all of today's speakers for sharing their perspective. I think you can see just from Shariel's comments alone how pervasive this is, how much of a problem this is, and why we as an office think it's important to raise this as an issue to let the public know about what we're seeing out there, to empower people with information and ways to take this on, and certainly to do our job from a law enforcement perspective with the investigations that are underway, as well as the actions that we've already taken vis-a-vis these companies. So at this time, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Why not go after some of the stores that are selling to people under 18?
Well, certainly that is something that we are in the midst of investigating. I can't speak specifically given the nature of the investigations, but I think my message was clear earlier. We are addressing both the companies that manufacture and market these vapes, as well as the online retailers that are selling a host of products associated with vaping and engaging in similar marketing tactics directed towards young people. And certainly what I referred to as the brick and mortar stores, the stores in and around the state, in our communities, that are selling these products. And we have real concerns about the extent to which they are not complying with existing Massachusetts laws and regulations that prohibit the sale of these products to young people. And so that is within our sights, and let it be known today that notice is going out to retailers here and across the state that they need to understand what the law is, and they need to follow the law, or they're going to be held accountable. Because at the end of the day, this is just about protecting young people, protecting public health.
What is the objection to JUUL's prevention curriculum in schools?
Well, I think it's a little like letting the fox into the hen house. I mean, there are any number, particularly in Massachusetts, where we are so blessed to have the health community that we have, in particular, any number of organizations focused on health and wellness. I think about the American Cancer Society joining us here today. I know from the work, the extensive work that we have done around substance use prevention, and in particular focused on efforts directed at the opioid crisis, that we have just an abundance of curricula and organizations ready to work with schools. Schools, as the superintendent already pointed out, have been doing this work for a long time. You know, I've been talking to health teachers and nurses and phys ed teachers who have spent years engaged in curricula, engaged in efforts on this front. So my perspective is, let's make use of those resources, let them continue. JUUL essentially, and others in my view, have manufactured a problem, manufactured a market, and now want to come into our schools and be able to have a direct relationship with our students. I think that's a terrible idea, and I would strongly discourage any school district from even contemplating that.
Have any schools welcomed them in?
Not that I'm aware of, but as I say, we're trying to be proactive on the front end, having learned that this is a strategy, this is something that JUUL is looking to do, and has made some overtures to school districts and schools here in Massachusetts. We wanted to be very clear in getting the word out early that this was coming to Massachusetts, and that schools and school districts, working in partnership with others, needed to be aware that this was happening, and frankly needed to be have their radar up about what they were being offered. I understand, and you understand, when school district budgets are tight, it may be appealing to take and take up the services that companies may offer. But in this instance, I think it's a terrible idea, and it really, to me, is pretty brazen when you think about that juxtaposed against the direct and calculated and targeted efforts to recruit and enlist young people into vaping as young as possible.
Are there many other states that are already doing this kind of crackdown, or have been ahead of the curve? Or?
Well, as far as we know, we are the first state to send civil investigative demands and to start a formal investigation. And we certainly encourage other states to pursue investigations of this industry, and we're certainly happy to be a resource. We recently did join, though, other states and attorneys general from other states in submitting comments to the Food and Drug Administration, urging them, our federal government, to take additional steps such as extending their flavoring ban to cover e-cigarette products as well. So we're going to continue to work on all fronts with federal agencies and federal partners, certainly with other states. And you know, this is something we take seriously. As you know, It was state AGs that really led the fight against the tobacco industry in the first instance many years ago that resulted in significant changes. I don't want to see us go backwards. That's what this is about, and I really appreciate the attention and the commitment of the medical community, health community, our school community, and concerned parents around the state with whom I've spoken with many about this issue.
It would seem as though you would need the cooperation of a lot of other states. I mean, this is one state, and this is a national company with a national marketing campaign. So what is really the end game here with this?
Well, I want them to stop engaging in unlawful, illegal activity that violates Massachusetts laws and regulations. You know, pursuant to a law that was passed here in 2015, you have to be at least 18 years old to buy any tobacco product, including e-cigarettes. And in fact, there's another regulation that says if you're a city or town, you can adopt a higher floor, 21. And in fact, last week, the legislature just passed a bill raising the statewide age to purchase any tobacco product, including, bless you, tobacco and e-cigarettes, to 21. That's pending on the governor's desk. And the two sponsors we had here today, Senator Jason Lewis and Representative Paul McMurtry, appreciate their advocacy and support. You know, my job, as always, is to enforce the laws here that are on the books. I can't account for or take action in other states or deal with behavior conduct in other states, but certainly, whether it's online or whether it's brick and mortar operations, people have to follow the law here. So my end game, my goal, is to shut down the illegal activity, which is why we sent out the letters saying cease and desist from engaging in illegal activity. It's why we're in the midst of ongoing investigations into the actions of these manufacturers, these online retailers, and brick and mortar operations. And importantly, we have an education component, which part of today's effort is about, to let the public know about this as an issue, and for parents to be able to see it and talk to their kids about what I think is really something we should be concerned about. You heard Dr. Winnicott, you know, and you heard from Shariel, something that seems so benign because it's marketed and sold in the form of bubble gum or cotton candy. And you see the ease with which students have just picked that up, not apprehending or recognizing the serious health issues that come with that use. We just want people to be aware of that. That's the end game.
Ms. Healy, you just said that they're breaking the law, so why aren't you filing charges or a lawsuit at this point?
Well, as with everything, we like to do our investigation first, make sure we have the facts, make sure we determine the scope of investigation, but suffice it to say that based on what we had already learned to date, I was comfortable sending out those cease and desist letters, ordering them to stop engaging in illegal and unlawful activity. Certainly, our investigation will proceed and is proceeding, and we will look to go where the facts take us, where the law takes us as always, and to hold entities accountable to the extent that they have violated the law. And also to engage in advocacy for reform of practices. You know, what are the marketing practices? What are the policies that get us to this point? What do these manufacturers and retailers know about where their products are ending up? And are they simply turning a blind eye and looking the other way as young people in numbers we haven't seen before and at an age we've never seen before get addicted to these products?
Last
These examples
question.
are from 3 years ago. Do you have any proof that it's ongoing or more recent examples?
You know, I think if you were to leave here today, and I hope that and encourage some of you to do just this, go online and Google JUULing. You know, you will see social media that is so powerful and so pervasive that basically sensationalizes this vaping, that makes it seem incredibly appealing to young people. There are any number of blogs and websites. There are any number of social media examples, which of course is the medium where kids are at, where young people are at. So I encourage you to explore that, and you will see for yourselves just how much of an effort these companies have made and how successful they have been in penetrating and permeating our youth culture.
And you said that you issued a subpoena to JUUL. What were you asking for from that?
Well, we're asking for a variety of documents. As I said, we want to make sure we understand what their marketing and policy practices are. We want to understand whether or not they have complied with Massachusetts consumer protection laws and regulations. We want to understand, of course, more about what their engagement has been with online retailers and brick and mortar stores. It is the subject of investigation, so I'll leave it at that. But we want answers and we want accountability. We know that this is something that really is everywhere. And I'll tell you folks, as I said, you know, I started out on the road several months ago, going from school to school, middle schools and high schools, talking to young people, really with a focus on substance use prevention and our education program that we were making available to schools through this office that really came out of the work we've been trying to do to combat the opioid crisis. That is really important work, and we're going to continue to do that. But the one thing that became clear to me is that, you know, there is this huge issue that has emerged out there that isn't being adequately talked about or pursued or investigated, and that is vaping. And, you know, I bet having been here today, you will leave here and you will see just how pervasive vaping and juuling is out there. And I just encourage people to get educated. We're going to continue to do the work that we always do out of this office. But I raise this because I really believe it is a health issue for our young people. And my job as your Attorney General is to be there to work with my team and work with stakeholders to make sure that at least here in Massachusetts, we're doing everything we can to do right by our young people.
Thank you.
Thank you.